hello, everybody. Happy Monday. Happy, I guess, first full week of December. And thank you so much for joining me today as we talk about PACEs and protective factors. My name is Stacy Williams, and I'm the site director for Creoaks Health Services in the McAlester-Atoka area. And I have been in this position for going on 11 years now. And prior to the position with Creoaks, I was a consultant and trainer with the OU National Resource Center for Youth Services. Did that for 10 years, working directly with kiddos and foster parents and those that have aged out of foster care. And so one of the things that has always intrigued me is trauma and protective factors. And so today we're going to talk a little bit about ACEs and trauma, and then we're going to talk about protective factors and things that we can all do in our lives to kind of subvert some of the negative effects of trauma. So first we're going to watch a little video about ACEs so we can just kind of remember what adverse childhood experiences are and why it's important to know about them. Can you all hear?
Yes.
Okay.
What does your parents' divorce have to do with your risk for heart disease? If your mother had a drinking problem when you were growing up, are you more likely to suffer from depression as an adult? Here's what you should know about ACEs. ACEs stand for Adverse Childhood Experiences, extremely stressful events that can happen to a child growing up. Some experiences are so stressful that they can alter brain development, as well as the immune system, increasing the risk of lifelong health and social problems in adulthood. The term comes from the Adverse Childhood Experiences Study, landmark research that shed new light on the root cause of everything from stroke and liver disease to substance abuse and mental illness. In the late 1990s, an epidemiologist from the Centers for Disease Control and a preventive medicine doctor at Kaiser Permanente set out to understand the association between childhood experience and lifelong health. They asked over 17,000 people in the Kaiser Health Plan in San Diego about their health history, as well as difficult questions about their experiences growing up. Anda and Felitti tallied up 10 different kinds of adversity in this largely middle-class and college-educated population. They were stunned to see how common ACEs were. 21% of all respondents were sexually abused as children. 19% grew up with someone who suffered mental illness. 28% had been physically abused. And 2 out of 3 respondents had experienced at least one ACE. The researchers next looked at how someone's ACE score, or the number of adversities they experienced, related to a wide array of serious health and social problems. They saw that the more ACEs someone had, the greater their risk for poor outcomes compared with someone with no ACEs. Someone with an ACE score of 4 had twice the risk of heart disease and cancer. Someone with an ACE score of 5 had an 8 times greater chance of being an alcoholic. And those with an ACE score of 6 or more, on average, died 20 years earlier. With every major problem they looked at in the ACE study, the risk went up for each additional adverse experience in childhood. As Dr. Robert Anda says, what's predictable is preventable. It's important to remember that ACEs are not destiny. ACEs are a tool for understanding the health of a population as a whole. For individuals, an ACE score can be a tool for understanding their own risk for health and social problems and empower them to make changes for themselves and their children. ACEs tend to get passed down from generation to generation and are common across all income levels, races, and cultures. But increasingly, people of all different professions and backgrounds are coming together to discuss how ACEs affect their communities. They're finding new ways to treat and prevent ACEs. Many doctors are starting to screen their patients for ACEs as part of their medical history. More schools are becoming trauma-informed, considering the source of problem behavior when disciplining their students, instead of immediately suspending or expelling them. To learn more about interrupting the cycle of adversity and improving health and well-being for the next generation, please visit kpjrfilms.co.
Okay. So, any thoughts about that before we move on? Sorry, didn't mean to do that. Any thoughts about ACEs, adverse childhood experiences, before we move on?
Stacy, this is Brittany. I would just say
Brittany?
it's life-changing. So
It is.
yeah.
It's trauma is life-changing, and when you become aware of adverse childhood experiences and the effects that it has on every aspect of our lives, that's also life-changing. I know personally, whenever I first heard about ACEs, it made a lot of sense for me in my life and my family, things that were like, oh, that makes sense now. And so I know that I've seen it make a difference in my siblings' lives whenever they became aware of adverse childhood experiences and the changes that we made to try to disrupt ACEs in our families and to increase the protective factors that we have to change the narrative of our family history. So we want to talk a little bit about the antidote for ACEs. ACEs are there, trauma happens. Yes, we want it to stop. There's no way we can completely stop it, but what we can do is we can be disruptors. We can disrupt the accumulation of ACEs, and we can put protective factors in place to help negate the effects of adverse childhood experiences. So here on the screen, you see two images. You see on the right side, you see a triangle, kind of looks like Maslow's hierarchy kind of. And on the left, you see a heart. So on the right side with that triangle, you see adverse childhood experiences are the mechanisms by which that influence our well-being and our health throughout a lifespan. So when we have adverse childhood experiences, that disrupts our neural development. Neurodevelopment is how our brain connects to the rest of our body. If our neurodevelopment is disrupted, then we have impairments with social, emotional, and cognitive issues. If that happens, we have the adoption of some at-risk behaviors. We make some adaptations to our life, and some of them are maladaptive and some of them are not. And then if we're doing some at-risk behaviors, then we have disease, disability, and social problems, and that accumulates to early death. On the left side in the heart, you see that relationships and resources are the biggest part of the antidote to ACEs. Protective and compensatory experiences, PACEs, which we'll talk about, that brings on optimal neurodevelopment. When we have optimal neurodevelopment, we have effective social, emotional, and cognitive functioning. If we have that kind of functioning, we have healthy behaviors and healthy relationships. Then we achieve developmental milestones, and that accumulates to health and longevity, which is what we want to do. So as you can see, relationships and resources and those protective and compensatory experiences are what we're striving to get to. So what are those protective and compensatory experiences, those PACEs? So we have Dr. Hayes Grudo has come up with this PACES, and I sent Teresa the PACES kind of survey, and so she can send that out and you all can have access to that. But basically what it is those PACES are having someone who loved you unconditionally and you had no doubt that they cared about you. You have at least one best friend, someone you can trust and have fun with, doing anything regularly to help others or special projects in the community to help others. Have an adult, not your parent, that you trusted and could count on when you needed help or advice. Were you an active member of at least one group or organization? On the resources and context side, have an engaging hobby, an artistic or intellectual pastime, either alone or in a group. Were you regularly involved in organized sports groups or other physical outlet? Live in a home that was typically clean and safe with enough food to eat. Have a school that provided the resources and experiences you needed to learn. And were there rules in your home that were clear and fairly administered? You know, some folks that I know that have high ACE scores, they say, you know, I had some really high ACE scores, but you know, I'm okay. And when you look at the protective factors that they had in their lives, some of these things that are listed are things that they had. So that was the antidote to the trauma that they experienced. Do you all have any thoughts about this list of protective and compensatory experiences? Okay, we're going to look at these a little bit more thoroughly. So unpacking these PACES, the relationships are key. Having unconditional love. Children need to feel loved and know that they're going to be cared about. Attachment research and research on authoritative supports, it supports the importance of unconditional love, warmth, and nurture. Having a best friend, that protects children from peer rejection, bullying, and victimization. Having friends, children that can try out new skills and learn behaviors among their equals. So having those play dates and things like that, having connections with peers. Friends also reduce stress and provide social support and acceptance. And, you know, that's the same for adults as well. We need those things in our life. We need those friends to be able to do those things with. Having a mentor, a trustworthy adult provides support, advice, or comfort when parents were not available or in other areas of life. A coach, a teacher, a relative can protect children, make up for much of the negative outcomes often associated with poorly functioning households. So thinking about when you all were young, can you think of people in your life that made a difference, that made you feel unconditional love, having a best friend or a mentor, a teacher? Can you think of that person when you were growing up? And does anybody want to share the information about that person?
I was going to type it in the chat, but I don't want to, it'd take me too long. I was just going to say my person, I don't feel like was ever a consistent person because I moved around so much. I went to multiple different elementary schools, so I never really had a teacher or administrator that was really good to me. But I mean, I never had one that was really bad to me either. But yeah, so mine was, I feel like multiple people. So I'm definitely very resilient.
Yeah. I can remember having coaches, well, I call him coach, but I was never in sports, but in junior high and high school, that was kind of the person that I went to that was a safe person that knew. I always say I'm friends with him on Facebook right now. I'm 51. I'm friends with him on Facebook. And whenever there's always a teacher appreciation post or things like that, I always say, if anybody wants to complain about the person I am, talk to him, because he helped make me who I am and made me see that I was more than maybe I probably thought that I could be. And he gave me a lot of unconditional support. And it's still something that I appreciate in my life now. I also had a mentor in college, my first year in college. My parents my dad had a 6th grade education and my mom had an 8th grade education. And so I was the first person in my family to achieve a bachelor's degree and then a master's degree. And navigating the education, the higher ed system was something that she really helped me with. And I, again, appreciate having her in my life for that.
I had multiple teachers, a journalism teacher in junior high and high school those two teachers were extremely important. Also, one of my friend's dads who lived down the street, who taught me how to work on my bike and then taught me how to work on my car. And I say often about him that he wasn't the kind of guy that most people think he should be my mentor. He, he was a little rough around the edges. But he was a Vietnam vet and smoked a little bit of the green back then before it was medically legal and all of those kind of things. And but he was a bit nutty, and I knew that whatever craziness that I was going through couldn't be outdone by his, or along those lines, of safe place, and needed that.
Right. Thank you for sharing that. So another part of relationships is being a part of a group. Membership in a group fosters a sense of belonging in the community. Group membership can also help with identifying development and aid children in developing their moral values and their kind of their own way. I raised 2 boys. They're now 26 and 23. My oldest will be 27 next month. And I kept them busy in activities and groups because that was my kind of parenting, idle hands, didn't want idle hands. So we're gonna be involved in as many sports and things that we could. Volunteering, helping others provides us with a sense of connection to our community. It helps children learn about the needs of others and fosters empathy, altruism, and perspective taking. Research shows the positive effects of volunteering, particularly when children volunteer with their parents. So giving them those opportunities, even when we're working with families, helping them find those opportunities to give back in their communities. And anybody have any experience or examples you want to share with being a part of group or volunteering? No? Okay, resources. So having the opportunity to be physically active. Being active is important for health, and being active reduces stress in our body. I was listening to a podcast yesterday about all of the trauma and things that are going on in the world. And there was a doctor that was working with a group in Macedonia after lots of war and those kinds of things. And he was working with this group, and he said that what he did was dance with them. And after giving them those outlets, they were able to ID and process some of the trauma they had been through, but giving them the opportunity to just move their bodies releases, and it kind of sparks different parts in our brain to help us think differently. And so giving them the opportunity and the chances to move and to just be active helps make our brains healthy. Organized sports can provide both security and connection. Sports can help it develop goal setting, self-regulation, and self-esteem. Having a hobby teaches discipline and self-regulation in the context of fun. It can lead to a sense of mastery, competence, and self-esteem. And creative hobbies provide an outlet for expression and identity exploration and allow children to have a voice and be recognized for their abilities. So letting them have those hobbies, even though I know that I am not a good crafter. I know that I am not an artistic person, and that wouldn't be the best thing for me to do, because it makes me feel like I have no artistic skill at all. But having them pick something that they like. Can you all give any examples of any physically active activities or hobbies that kiddos can participate in? Other resources, having a safe home and enough food to eat. Maslow's hierarchy, we know that having safety and security, food is so important. Good nutrition is important as well for brain health and development. And kids shouldn't have to worry about food. They shouldn't have to worry that they're not going to have enough food when they get home. And we know that's hard, especially, I don't know about you all, but I'm seeing in my communities that I work in and live in, that it seems like there are more people that have bigger of those basic needs. Mealtimes can also be part of the home routine for family time and communication and sharing. Strengthening families and celebrating families programs that we offer and many agencies do as well starts with a family meal. And so that's important. We want them to be able to experience that. And we know with some of our families are really busy and those times are few and far between, but encouraging that amongst our families is important. So having clear and fair rules and predictable routines. We all need that consistency. We all need to know what's going to happen every single day. And fair rules and predictable routines create a sense of safety. Children who have no rules or limits often grow up to be irresponsible adults, engage in risky behavior as teens, and don't do well in school. Part of, it's when those things that are the social expectations and the adaptations that some kiddos have had to kind of develop to maintain in their households, when those kind of come together, it's hard on everybody. If you have a child that hasn't been taught to share or to have a routine, or that there are rules that we have to follow, whenever they come to school, it's difficult for them to sit still and follow rules and share. And so we want to be able to kind of instill that early on. So adolescents whose parents monitor their friends and activities are less likely to engage in those risky behaviors and do better in school. As children grow older, it's important for them to have a say in the rules. So we know that as we have adolescents in our homes, they know everything and they are the experts on everything. And we want to be able to have them have a say in the rules within reason. We want to give them the opportunity to make those choices and to come up with some of those rules. And even the activities that we participate in as a family, letting them have a say in some of the things. It increases their critical thinking skills. So having good schools, having the opportunity to learn. Early education is a 7-to-1 return on investment. Oklahoma does a fairly good job with the early education opportunities that we have in our state. And so we want our children to be able to participate in those. Attending a school that provides the resources and opportunities to have positive academic experiences help kids facilitate mastery of knowledge. When kids attend a good school, they're typically among peers who do well in school and families who value their education. Being among such peers amplifies the student's performance, as students tend to fall or rise in performance based on those around them. Having parents, having guardians that are involved in school is very important. I remember my mom being actively involved in bringing things for parties and being there for those kinds of things, and that was important to me. Evidence across many disciplines finds that quality education is one of the best predictors of life and later success, and having schools that are trauma-informed, very important. So it's just a question for you all. Select 3 PACEs that are already or could become accessible to the kids in your life through existing systems. So let's talk about, can you all identify 3 PACEs that the kiddos in your life could access through either healthcare system, social services, education systems, volunteering opportunities? Can you give 3 examples? Things that you're already doing, because I know everybody's doing stuff super well. Okay, I see something pop up in the chat. Let me open that. Volunteering at a food bank, yes. Any other examples? Okay. And I encourage all of you all to be an advocate for healing community systems. So when we look at our community, it should be apparent that PACEs need to be implemented at every level of our community. We need our chambers of commerce to be educated and aware of adverse child experiences as well as protective factors. We need our local government, our mayors, our city managers, the people that plan the things, plan the future for our towns to be knowledgeable about adverse child experiences and PACEs. And of course, we need to encourage our school systems to become more nurturing and have positive protective factors. None of us becomes resilient alone. It takes all of us to continue the self-healing communities systems. So we want to encourage nurturing relationships, all of those unconditional loves, the friendship, the social groups, the volunteering, the caring for others, and our adult mentors. We want growth in healing environments, opportunities to develop and apply the skills, the talents, the knowledge, and the competencies. We want families to be able to meet their basic needs and have support for positive parenting, healthy leisure activities, and community engagement. I know that some communities have family centers, family resource centers. And does anybody have a family resource center in your community or any other organizations that are doing that kind of work? Okay. So Lynn says that you are the resource center. Can you give us some examples of some of the things that you all do at your resource center to kind of increase community healing? Lynn, if you're talking, you might be muted. So being trauma informed, very important in everything that we do. This graphic here on the screen shows some things that kind of encompasses trauma informed care and the things that don't. One of the things that that kind of jumps out to me is the words that we use. You'll see "you're crazy" or things like that. Thinking about the language that we use when we're referring to people and the struggles that they are having is very important. So using trauma-informed language. We need to look for ways that we can not blame or shame somebody, but give them the opportunities and the resources and supports that will help them be more trauma-informed and help us be more trauma-informed in our systems. So saying things like "what happened to you" instead of "what's wrong with you." Having respect instead of blaming and shaming. Giving people choices and considering their lived experiences when they're struggling. Looking at empathy-based work and seeing the whole person and their history, not just some maybe behaviors or addictions that they may have. So looking at how we can become more trauma-informed in everything we do. And I'm going to look at the chat. So Lynn says that that you connect with your local pregnancy center, health department, and we have reached out to local schools to collaborate. Awesome. Michelle says work with Sooner Success and we help families with resources as well. That's great. All awesome work. Okay, so let's look for how you can help your kiddo. Strategies for parents and other helping folks. So we're going to watch a little video, a little bit about how resilience is built.
Brains. They are everywhere, in the world's gentlest places and its harshest. In this unforgiving environment, some brains exhibit troubling signs: addiction, illness, depression, social disorder. Yet others thrive. Why have some brains developed the ability to cope in harsh conditions while others struggle? It is one of nature's great secrets.
Hi. Hello? This is amazing. But I just need to clarify a few things. This great secret? It's actually science. Severe adversity isn't good for any brain. But it is true that some brains do better than others in the face of significant challenges.
Oh, a scientist. Yes, I agree. This is a great secret of science.
Great, yes, but not a secret. Let me explain. We're born with brains, but our brains change as we grow. They develop based on experiences we have, and different brains respond to experiences in different ways. Okay, thanks. I'll let you get back to it.
Indeed. Some brains show robustity and strongitude, while others...
Sorry, we scientists use the word resilience. Some brains are more resilient than others.
Yes, resiliensis.
Resilience?
Resilience. Revenge of the cortex.
Resilience is a result of the interplay between genes and life experiences. It's a brain's ability to maintain good functioning under adversity.
Resilience makes us invincible.
Nothing makes us invincible. What resilience does is to give less leverage to negative factors in our lives and tip the balance in favor of positive outcomes.
Resilience. Fate's legendary prize.
Whoa, no! Some people are born with more resilience than others, but resilience can also be built over time. It's a big project involving parents, caregivers, teachers,
Kith, kin, karaoke comrades,
soccer coaches, counselors,
pastry chefs, associate producers, even millennials. Like a barn raising in times of old.
Yeah. In fact, we scientists believe strong brain architecture is the foundation for resilience. And, oh, look over there.
Oh, yes. A young brain returns after months of isolation and adversity. No words can describe what this poor brain has suffered.
There are words that describe it. We scientists call it toxic stress.
Toxic stress lies in wait.
No. Stress happens inside the body. It's the fight or flight system kicking in. But if stress hormones are elevated too high and for too long, it can have negative effects on the brain and body.
Stress, a nasty poison.
Not all stress, just toxic stress. With the right supports, we can make severe stress tolerable, which means it won't do lasting damage. Stress can even be positive because it helps us to learn problem solving and coping skills, which leads us back to resilience.
Alas, this brain is resilience-less.
No, it isn't. Let me explain. Remember when I talked about giving less leverage to negative experiences and tipping the scale in a positive direction? Well, here's a little something I've been working on. It's a really amazing metaphor. Here goes. I call it the resilience scale.
Resilience scales. Protective armor plates that...
Shiny, but no. The resilience scale helps us understand why some brains are more resilient than others.
The resilience scale sends out invisible resilience rays
It's
that's
really just a scale. See? It's a beam being held up by a fulcrum.
full of crumbs.
Geez, no! A fulcrum. You know, like high school Never mind. Let me just clean this up. See, negative experiences add weight to one end of the beam, and positive factors add weight to the other end. Ideally, we want the scale to tip toward the positive side and lead towards positive life outcomes.
The brain's future literally hangs in the balance.
The position of the fulcrum can be understood as our original capacity for resilience. It's something like our genetic starting position. Remember the young brain that was struggling to survive? Look, It started life with the fulcrum off-center, giving more leverage to negative experiences, serious stuff like abuse, neglect, and chaotic environments. That means positive factors like responsive relationships, safe environments, and learning opportunities had less leverage. Over time, the negative load shifted the fulcrum even farther in a negative direction.
Tragedy.
Not at all. Right now, this brain is experiencing poor health. But with help, the scale can be tipped toward more positive outcomes. The first thing we can do is to stop negative experiences from stacking up. Then, we can add more positive factors, loading up the positive side of the scale. And we're not done. We can work to shift the fulcrum in a way that favors positive outcomes.
The fulcrum, an amazing instant fix-it button.
No, it's a process. It involves many supportive people and plenty of time. Remember? This brain is still young, so adult brains can work with it to relieve toxic stress and teach coping skills. In early childhood, these efforts can push the fulcrum a considerable distance.
Childhood, filled with fascination and fulcrum flexibility.
Sort of, but there are other sensitive developmental periods that are windows of opportunity, like adolescence. And even if this brain doesn't get help until adulthood, change is still possible. It will take more support, and the change will be less dramatic. But any fulcrum can be moved to make positive outcomes more achievable.
The bad experiences disappear.
I'm afraid not. It's hard to undo the effects of past negative experiences, and it takes time. But we can eventually relieve the burden of those negative experiences. Our little brain can get the help it needs to adapt, recover, and enjoy good health and wellness.
And everyone, everywhere can become more resilient for eternity.
Why not? With the right support, everyone everywhere can become more resilient.
I'm so glad I saved humanity. It's been a majestic experience.
Yeah, me too. Well done.
That's one of my favorite videos. Anybody have any thoughts about the video? Okay. So we all have a part in raising that barn, right? And tipping those scales. So what parents, teachers, and caregivers can do is gain an understanding of ACEs and know that you don't have to be defined by your ACE score. We can create environments where children feel safe and emotionally and physically, and help children identify their feelings and manage their emotions. So resilience is bouncing back from those negative events that have happened in our lives, and hope is wanting more out of life. Higher hope people do better in life than lower hope people. Believing in oneself and others, believing in the future, those are all hope-centered things that we can do. Hope score is more of a predictor of college success on the ACT scores, or than the ACT scores. And students who are low hope are usually the first students who are kicked out of school. Higher hope kids have a greater influence on lower hope kids, and peer mentoring groups work in increasing hope. So looking at ways that we can foster that hope and resilience is important. So we talked about those protective factors, having someone who loves us unconditionally, having a best friend, all of those things that we talked about earlier. And at hobby, sports, living in a home that's typically clean and safe with enough food to eat, having a school that provides us with the resources and experiences to learn, and where there are rules and that they are fairly administered. So one of the tools that you can use is allowing the child to de-escalate and regulate before problem solving. Never in the history of the world have we been able to solve a problem whenever folks are escalated and dysregulated. And all kiddos respond to traumatic events in a different manner. So we want to listen with empathy, understand their unique perspective, validate how they are feeling, help them identify their emotions and put words to it, and respond with understanding and empathy. When a child feels validated, they are more likely to listen and to hear. They may change their behaviors. It helps build your relationship, and it builds their self-esteem, and improves their overall emotional health. So some de-escalation and coping strategies, breathing techniques, visualizing colors with focused breathing, which we'll talk about in a second, rise and fall breathing, which supports the diaphragmatic deep breathing, shape breathing, dragon breathing, and bubbles. And we're going to talk about each of those. So this is visualized color breathing. Thinking about, closing your eyes and thinking about blue. Blue is the color of relaxation and peace, and it clears your mind. Green is healing and balance, and it improves your thoughts. Magenta, release, let go of those negative feelings and thoughts. Orange, fun, happiness, and joy, uplifts your mood. And red, energize with vitality, increase strength and energy. And you can find different ways to utilize this. You can have different note cards or toys that are that color, so they can hold that toy or hold that card whenever you're having them visualize those colors as they're doing their breathing exercises. This is shape breathing. You can do stars, or you can do this infinity. There's also flowers. And what you do is you just follow with your finger with these shapes, and wherever your finger is what you're doing with your breath. And they also now have calm strips that have these on there, and rainbows and things like that. Things that you can make these easily at home. These are the wonderful coping bottles that I know OFN helps make, glitter jars and bubbles and Play-Doh, fidgets, having a calming corner. And just like we have calming rooms at school, having a calming corner at home, having a comfy space with the books and the toys and the things that they like, all of the things that kind of are their happy place. Glitter jars, bubbles, Play-Doh, anything like that is a fidget. So movement, dancing, rocking, and pacing, sitting and standing exercises, yoga moves, which is something that I personally am going to start trying to do, is yoga. 51, haven't done that before. I mean, just here and there, but I'm going to try that for myself. And then there's a program called Zones of Regulation, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. So finding your zone and discussing your emotions and your feelings. So this is kind of the zones of regulation at home, and you all can Google zones of regulation. There's tons of stuff out there, but basically there are 4 conceptual zones. You identify where you are. Hey, I'm yellow zone right now. I'm frustrated. I'm worried. Maybe it's time that I need to practice some coping skills. And if there's an incident that happens and maybe you need to give your kiddo some consequences or some redirection for some behaviors, if they're in the red zone, if they say, hey, even if it's a target, I'm in the red zone, then we're not going to talk about this right now. Maybe we need to talk about it whenever we're in the yellow or red zone, or maybe, there's some time away from that, those feelings in the red zone when you're feeling out of control. So this helps them to identify those emotions. It helps them identify maybe when they're going to get upset, so they can start practicing those coping skills. And so they can say, I'm really in this yellow zone. What do I need to do to keep myself out of that red zone? So it helps them identify those triggers, and also encourages calming strategies to prevent getting to that red zone. So what you can do at home is you can make a poster as a family. You can create a zone toolbox, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then have the kiddo share with the child what zones you're in and how that's affecting you. And then asking if this is a small or a big problem, so they can identify. I know that having raised kiddos, sometimes things that they thought was a big, huge problem maybe wasn't a big problem to me, but it was a big problem to them. So helping them identify that. This is a zones visual toolbox, or the visual of the toolbox. And these are some examples of some things that you can do when you're in the blue zone, when you're in the green zone, when you're in the yellow, when you're in the red zone. So those are just some examples. And it's never too late for us as we grow. We know that cognitive behavioral therapy, mindfulness, and yoga are important and necessary to help adults recover from ACEs. But if you did grow up observing and acquiring good life habits, daily routines, and interpersonal skills, you can still develop them as an adult, which is something that we all strive to do. We're all striving to kind of get those routines in our life and get those interpersonal skills that we all need, and acquire those good habits. And so it's never too late for us as well. We can help folks with a PACES plan, and this is an example of that. So you can say, for love, I know that I am loved and loved by somebody unconditionally. I do not doubt that I am cared for. Talk about the current status. Maybe they have a goal to increase the love in their lives, and what actions they can take. So that's an example of a PACES plan for adults. So also something that's very important to children and adults is connection to culture. And when we have young people that are maybe struggling with finding those connections to their cultures, that can be a stumbling block to being able to connect to other parts in their life. And so I want to share this video with you. This is actually Daryl Conquering Bear Crow, and he is a member of my chosen family. He calls me auntie, I call him nephew. Somebody that I met several years ago working with the resource center. He was a foster club all-star. He was in foster care. And so he has a story about how connecting to his culture helped him start to heal, and still helps him heal. And so we're going to play this.
My name is Daryl Conquering Bear. I am Oglala Lakota Sioux from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. My mom is Conquering Bear. On my paternal side, and my dad's side is Crow. I do come from a reservation located in South Dakota. I'm very proud American Indian Native American, and I'm very humbled and very honored to be able to help in any way that I can for my people and the future generations to come. My tribe symbol is symbolic of the plains, are the colors on my shirt. My tribal flag has 9 teepees representing the 9 districts that are in our reservation. So if you look at the symbol, you would see 3 triangles in the normal eyes, but in the native ways, we see the colors of our plains. I'm a plain tribe. And so the plains are located in the South Dakota, Montanas, North Dakotas. And these colors are very symbolic to me. And I didn't know what these colors meant when I was in foster care. I was ripped away from my family, my tribe. And when I exited out of care, slowly within these 10 years, reconnecting with my tribe, I'm now understanding that I come from a rich cultural background, and I need to embrace it and share with other people and other youth that are going through the system, that are American Indian, that are my tribe, that it's okay to be Native. From 13 to 18, I was raised on a farm. I was raised in a Hispanic family. They are my mom and dad. I do have contact with my biological mother, but being grown up in state care, I was dancing when I was younger, introduced to the circle, knew part of what it is to be Lakota. And when I was in state care, all of that disappeared. I wasn't learning the language, and so the state said that we weren't able to do that. We weren't able to go to powwows. We weren't able to go to sweat lodges, and so that's where my advocacy began in 2005, was to discover, why couldn't I be normal? I just wanted to be like any other child in my reservation, to go through rites of passage. What more would help me be connected while I was in care was being connected to my tribal community in Denver. In the native ways, we go to our doctors, we go to our sacred people for answers or for questions. And in times, It's much like the Pope. They heal us. They give us recommendations. But when I was placed in state care, I wasn't able to outreach to those people. Through my 10 years of advocacy, I thought I was the only Native American that experienced foster care. I thought I was the only one that didn't feel normal. It wasn't until a couple years ago that there was other Native youth that were wanting to be out there and use a voice. A sense of emotion still comes to this day when I tell this story, because that was the point where I knew I could use my voice. I could use who I really was as American Indian and as a big brother to make sure that I had made impact on my brothers and sisters' life.
So, so Bear, whenever he was able to start participating in sweat lodges and things like that, you know, he felt like he was over medicated and in foster care. He was able to go to sweat lodges and find healing in other ways. He began to grow, and I'm super proud of him. He's 35, super proud of him, and he's doing big things in Denver with Tribal Works, and so super proud of him. So connection to culture is super important. So I encourage all of you all to complete your ACEs and PACEs. And so just to be aware of that for you and how that manifests in your life and in your community. Whoops, sorry. And start looking at that. So how might ACEs affect your family and friends in your community? Do you see ACEs affecting your family, friends, and community? Yes, I will send this PowerPoint to Teresa, and she can send that out to you all.
Stacy, I'll speak up, Joni. We see these impacting our communities every single day. In fact, most of the time when we get to connect with families whose children are being touched by child welfare, it's usually a layered issue, you know, where they may be living in poverty, they may be in a very low ranking school, you know, that doesn't have a lot of support. The family may have no family around them, you know, that they can call if anything goes wrong. There may not be a grocery store in their neighborhood that's anywhere near, you know, that so that they can, instead of going to a quick, you know, like a quick trip or a 7-Eleven to buy groceries, where they can actually go to a grocery store where they can get them at regular prices. A lot of them don't have transportation. So we see that these issues are affecting families every day, and it makes it really hard. One of the issues that we have right now is for families that have a child in the neonatal ICU, Sooner Care will not cover the cost of transportation back and forth to see the child, but then they'll be turned into child welfare because they haven't been visiting their child, so that, you know, they show that they haven't abandoned them. But if they don't have a car and they don't have access to transportation, you know, from their perspective, they have, I mean, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
I just see this stuff impacting families every single day.
Every single day. Anita says that in the community she grew up in, she could see it as well as feel it. Yeah. So how might you use PACEs in your work with children, families, and communities? How can you use information about positive and protective factors in your work?
We have a really quiet group today, so I'm going to speak up, and maybe it'll get their juices going, because there's some awesome people on here. You know, some of the things that we try to do is connect people to resources. So, for instance, if they don't have transportation, connect them to a church or a volunteer organization that might offer that, or to Kai Boys, who has very reduced rate transportation. You know, you can even, if there was a cab in the rural areas where they provide support, you could never go for $2 or $3, which is a typical cost for fare. You know, I think the other thing is we have Oklahoma Family Network has some training on budgeting. You know,
Mhm.
sometimes if someone has never had modeled how to budget to keep up with their finances, if no one ever modeled that for them, they don't even know how to do it. They just know, oh my gosh, I got a check for $450. And I've wanted to go out to eat with friends for a long time. And so they use resources that maybe could have been for groceries for a whole month instead of just going out to eat, you know, a
Right.
handful of times. So those are just a few things that we do. And I know if we have a family resource center on here, they have to be doing some things to support
Right.
families
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah, Anita says by demonstrating the paces when we work with the families and the children in our communities, yes, definitely. Winter says help build a team of supports around them. Absolutely. Helping them identify those protective factors because, you know, being strengths-based, you know, let's look at the strengths in your life. Let's look at the protective factors that you already have in place and looking at maybe where those gaps are and where you could help them build those protective factors in and connections to those resources to build those factors in their lives. How else? Okay. Well, it is, I think, right at 1 o'clock. And I appreciate you all inviting me to come today. Here are just some more resources that you can look at for protective factors. The Body Keeps Score, fabulous book, The Deepest Well, the Adverse Child Experiences Recovery Workbook. You can go to acesandpaces.com, also PACES Connection, which I didn't put that on there. I don't know why, but PACES Connection, Oklahoma has a page there through Potts Family Foundation. So you can go there and get that. And that is my contact information. If anybody would like to contact me.
Thank you, Stacy. We appreciate you joining us today.
Yeah.
For everyone that's here, at the end of our conference tomorrow, we will be sending out a survey. We're asking that everybody take a minute to fill it out. We want to use your input. We value it as we're planning other events in the future. And by filling out that survey, it also puts you in for a gift card. So everybody that fills it out will be receiving a gift card in the mail. So I would just ask you to keep your eyes open for that. Again, it'll go out tomorrow evening or Wednesday morning. So keep your eyes open. You have Stacy's contact information, so I'm sure she'd be happy if you have any questions, and she will send us her presentation and we will send that out to you in a follow-up email. So have a great afternoon. You have about a 30-minute break before the next sessions start. Our 1 o'clock or our 1:30 to 2:30 is going to be disability etiquette and also the psychology of money. So I would encourage you to pick one of those and jump on, and we appreciate you guys joining us. Thank you.
Bye-bye.